Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Great American Film Off. If you're listening to us on podcast, thank you. If you're watching us on video, thank you. I'm here with
Thank
my
you
pal
both.
Crosby. How you doing, Crosby?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm
Oh,
excited to talk
good.
about basketball. Basketball has been in the news this week.
Oh, I love basketball.
So much going on. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this NBA Finals? Because at the time we're recording this, they have come and gone.
Yeah, this is true. You know, all love and respect to Giannis and the Bucks. It was. I thought it was a really fun finals. The way that it worked out. Obviously, it was sad to see so many injuries throughout the playoffs.
I agree.
Great playoffs, great finals. Can't wait for next season.
Yeah, are you on LeBron's wavelength with the whole ring rust thing? Like, you think they just didn't have enough time between seasons?
So I adore LeBron, but I would argue that yes, they probably didn't get enough time to rest, but that was something they could have decided. They could have all been like, if LeBron and Chris Paul are like, hey, we need more time, the whole league is like, guys, they need more time.
Yeah, I mean, and again, people, I mean, Giannis, he got hurt, but then he got right back in, and he ended up finishing.
He really did.
If he's hurt the whole rest of the finals, the Suns are winning in 4 or 5. You know, it's a totally different story, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was very impressed. I mean, that last performance, just all those
50 points.
Yeah, like, was it on the dot, like 50 points?
It was 50, yeah. It was 50 on the dot.
Yeah, it was almost half your team's points. That was very impressive.
Pretty incredible.
He made a team that is not like a big franchise team and turned it into a championship team. I mean, that's what we love to see. It's the story of the underdog, you know what I mean?
First time in 50 years, you love to see it.
Right. And we also had Space Jam 2 come out. Have you seen it?
Oh, we did. Which I did see that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun.
I didn't see it yet, so I've got to add it to my list. I'm a big fan of LeBron and the Looney Tunes. I just didn't get around to it. I did watch the first Space Jam and prep for this show in case one of us picked it.
It's a classic.
As just like to have in my repertoire, because I haven't really seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces when I was younger, but I don't have that same nostalgia. But we'll talk. Maybe it's one of our picks, maybe not. But
we'll see.
I didn't have a basketball jersey, but I wore a North Carolina shirt for the great LeBron himself, and I have Michael Jordan himself. Oh my gosh,
yes.
I just had LeBron on the brain. It's Michael Jordan repping the Tar Heels. Also, my grandparents went there, and then Dennis Rodman back there, and
the great Dennis Rodman.
So it's a great book. It's a whole basketball book. I found a great 2-page Dennis Rodman. I was like, I'll keep it. And then my Westfield Y basketball trophy from 2005.
Look at this man. This man is flexing. He's got. So for those of you who are not viewing, who are listening at home, this man has a wall of trophies. He's just flexing on me.
Well, I wanted to theme it out. Yeah, I wanted to theme it out. I didn't play for long, but when I played, I got the participation trophy. I'm gonna flaunt it if I can.
Oh yes, he's slashed and kicked.
If you couldn't tell by our basketball talk, we were talking about basketball movies, and you probably saw the title, so you knew that anyway. We're talking about the best basketball movie, but like basketball movies, are we really judging them necessarily for how good they are or for other elements? Like, so maybe it's safe to say our favorite basketball movies rather than like the best, because there were some that I would say are better than the one I'm going to pick, but are still fun movies. But these, the one I picked is fun, and I'm sure Crosby did too. Before we get into it, let's just describe how the show works. We each pick a movie once we have the topic. I believe I lost the last film off, so I'll have the first pick for this film off. I'll bring a movie, then Crosby will have his movie to fight or his backup if I chose his, which I don't think I did. And then we will go through 5 different rubric points, and whoever wins 3 out of 5, it's a shorter championship than the NBA Finals, I'll tell you that. 3 out of 5 will win the film off for the day. And then, of course, we'll tease next episode, and we'll read your answers as to what you thought was the best basketball film at home. So, Crosby, do we go through the rubric first, or do we pick the movies first? I totally forget.
I think we go through the rubric first.
It's been a while.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been a while.
So here we go. Crosby, take us through.
So we're going to go through our rubric. The real question we're asking, what is the best basketball movie? And for today, we're going to start with rubric point 1, the Chekhov's Gun Award. This is for just sort of the general acceptability of the plot. For basketball movies, they often aren't perfect in terms of their storytelling.
Right.
So it's up to us to decide which film succeeds the best. Second is the athletics acting scale. It's always fun to watch an athlete act. It's a very different kind of performance from what they're used to, but it's always interesting to see how it turns out. It's always fun, I should say. The Fast Break Award. The Fast Break Award is for which movie more accurately or more enjoyably captures basketball being played. Right. Some movies have a lot of basketball. Some movies are really more focused on the off-court stuff. 4, you got pop culture impact. Some movies obviously leave a stamp on pop culture that is felt for decades. And others just kind of slip away, making a couple million and moving into the night.
And then, as always,
the Netflix and Chex Mix scale, the one and
that's
only.
Right. Yeah, how rewatchable it is. Yeah. How it holds up, how much we want to go back and experience it all over again, which cannot be said for a lot of basketball movies, but can definitely be said for ours. So, Krosby, I put out a challenge last episode. I said, if enough people comment, DM, email, text me if they know me, whatever, to do a certain film, I will fight it. So, what team? Wildcats. That's right.
No.
I am going to fight High School Musical as my best basketball movie. I had a comment on the last video. I had several of your Instagram comments say High School Musical. I had DMs. I had texts. I had people liking my tweet when I tweeted about High School Musical. If you guys wanted, I said, if you like this tweet,
he's giving the people what they want.
I'm giving you all what you want. I'm fighting High School Musical. That's it.
Beautiful. That is,
and we'll get into
pretty glorious.
Yeah, you've seen it, I'm assuming.
Yes, I have seen High School Musical. It's
probably a while back.
It's a controversial classic.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm treating it like it's fucking Forrest Gump today. I'm treating it like it's
beautiful.
The crowd pleaser it is. Yeah, so High School Musical is gonna be what I fight because you know what, we're having fun. I'm the Giannis and the Bucks going into the postseason. No one's really picking me as the number 1 contender, but once I'm at the finals, you can't stop me.
You're gonna leave your mark. That much is for certain. Well,
hope I don't get injured.
I'm coming in with a bit of a star-studded foray into the world of street ball with the film Uncle Drew.
Yes, nice pick.
Now this movie is amazing. It's a movie that I think, to put it in short, just sort of delivers exactly what you think it's going to be, and is very, very aggressively fun. And for like a basketball movie, I think it did pretty well, and I think it actually did decently at the box office, which I want to talk about later.
Yeah.
But probably not as well as High School Musical.
Well, it's interesting because High School Musical didn't have a box office because it's TV. It premiered on TV.
Lord.
So, yeah. But the third one did because it eventually got a theatrical release. But that's going to be interesting when we talk about the actual pop culture impact and stuff like that. So let's dive right in. We're going High School Musical versus Uncle Drew. Right off the bat, I know a lot of people are asking, where's Space Jam? Where's Hoop Dreams? The thing is, Space Jam's the obvious choice, and Hoop Dreams is probably the most prestige. But we wanted to go with what's in our hearts and our nostalgia.
This isn't what is the basketball movie you can talk about at a wine and cheese party. This is what is our favorite basketball movie.
We'll save Hoop Dreams for what basketball movie should have won an Academy Award next year when we do the show. But right now. We're talking.
What basketball movie do you watch with your girlfriend's parents? Hoop's Dream. There you go. Boom.
Yes. So let's go right into it. Ka-chow. Chekhov's Gun Award. Let's talk about it, Krosby. Talk about Uncle Drew for me. Okay. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, give us a little bit of a synopsis on what the premise is. Yeah.
Essentially, it's about a young man played by Lil Ray Howard, who's very funny in this film. Does a really nice job. Basically, it's about him entering a street ball tournament. His player that he was going to use is stolen away by Nick Kroll. His girlfriend, played by Tiffany Haddish, is also stolen by Nick Kroll. And essentially, this young man recruits first Uncle Drew, who is a playground legend who's really old, played by Kyrie Irving, and then the rest of his old team. To play with them. So basically it's an anti-ageist basketball comedy It's very fun. It revolves around a big street ball tournament and the intricate relationships of these geriatric hoopers.
Yeah. And so, like, what makes it special, Krosby? Tell me, like,
What made it really
why does it
special
deserve
to
this
me,
point?
I just, it's funny. I remember when I first saw like the trailers for it, I was like, oh, that could be really fun. And then I didn't see it. And I watched it about 2 years after it came out. And I just threw it on one day because it was on, I think, HBO Go or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it and I finished it and I was like, oh, wow, that was actually really fun. I like, at that point, I'd kind of become cynical to the point where I was like, well, this is just going to be bad and I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be like, why did I watch that? But it was really fun. Yeah. And it's also a fun chance to watch some people who are performers of one sort, athletes, do acting, which is a completely different style of performance.
Because yours is full of renowned NBA players and WNBA players, and mine is not. So
and yours is all challenge. Actors.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Yeah, so let's the plot of High School Musical. Everyone who's seen it knows, but in case you haven't,
piece of a tale.
Troy and Gabriella meet at this New Year's Eve party. It's like Grease. They fall in love, but then when they get to this high school, they don't realize that they go to the same school. They run into each other. It's very Grease. He's with his cool basketball team. That was how we met. Right, exactly. Very true. He's got his popular squad. She's kind of the nerd. She's the mathlete, even though she's played by Vanessa Hudgens, probably the hottest woman in any Disney Channel movie. In any Disney Channel movie. So
spoiler alert, she wouldn't be unpopular in real life.
Right. No, like they had to do work to make her look less like the popular hot girl, even though she's a beautiful nerd. And then they fall in love, but then they both find out they have this passion for the High School Musical. They love to sing because they meet at a karaoke singing thing at the New Year's Eve party. I should have prefaced with that. And then they try out for the musical on a whim because she's nervous and he wants to like support her and audition with her. And then they end up getting the parts or the callback. And then it's a
Dylan, they have other commitments.
Exactly. He has basketball practice and she has math. So how do you do both in high school? How can you be both? And there's a rival, of course, Sharpay Evans and her brother Ryan, who don't want them to steal the spotlight because they're used to getting the leads, even though they're brother and sister. Playing Romeo and Juliet would be a little weird, but they want to play Romeo and Juliet even though they're brother and sister. And then Troy and Gabriella are just like, hey, we just want to do what we like. And then his dad is against it because he was a basketball legend. His friends are against it. They end up breaking apart. And then, of course, they come back. On the same day, the mathletes win the math tournament. The basketball players win the basketball tournament. And they get the parts after the callback. And then they're all in this together. They all dance in the gym. Not like West Side Story, but it's close. They dance in the gym. And it is a good old time.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Sorry. Spoiler alert. It all works out. And the second one I think is a little bit better, but a little less basketball centric. The second one's more baseball and golf. This is much more basketball centric. So I figured it worked. And yeah, I like this. The plot is very basic. It's, it kind of follows that Romeo and Juliet type thing where there's two different groups. It's this thing we see in West Side Story. It's the thing we see in Grease. It's two different people who want to be together, but their situations pull them apart. It's a very relatable thing.
Cross lovers.
Especially in high school. Exactly. It does feel very relevant if you are that age to see that happening. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most basketball forward like Uncle Drew is, but, the story itself, it's not ridiculous. It's very realistic. And, we've both been through both sports and theater worlds, and we see how sometimes they don't collide, at least where I came from. They didn't really mesh as well. Like we had a great baseball player who did the musicals because of scheduling, but couldn't do the plays. And then some people did the plays, but had swimming, so they couldn't do the musicals. So, there was a very pick or choose. You couldn't do both. So
I was always horribly uncoordinated, so I never played.
Oh, okay. You were just a fanboy.
When I was homeschooled, so
that's right.
So but I was the best.
Right.
I was the best in my class.
Of course, you had to be. I was gonna say, well, so you can't relate, but I can. But even in college, you have commitments, and sometimes you have to let things go. Social life even gets in the way. So yeah, I think it's an intriguing plot because of that. So I think both stories are very interesting. Very simple, but definitely relatable.
Agreed. I think that both of the stories could be called formulaic if that wasn't the point. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the reason that High School Musical is like Grease is because it's supposed to be like Grease. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
for
it's
kids,
supposed to, you know what for kids. But like the reason why Uncle Drew is like super formulaic and super like, well, we're bringing the team back together is like, well, that's the point. We're bringing the team back together, and the team is like NBA players, but they're acting, you know, And I actually think it's a strong point of both movies is the fact that they unabashedly are what they are, you know,
and that way you can focus more on like the performances and the actual relationships rather than like this complex story. Like a lot of like Space Jam, I feel like one of the weaknesses is that it's caught up a lot in like this whole other plot, whereas it's like, I just want to see LeBron or Michael Jordan play basketball with Looney Tunes. That's all I want to see, and it takes 30 minutes to get to it. Right. It takes so long to get to it, whereas these are like very much like, this is the plot and we're going to roll with it from the beginning.
Exactly, yeah. You know, I don't have a super strong opinion on who should receive this award. I enjoy the plot of Uncle Drew, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's stronger than the plot.
I mean, it's almost like,
I'm not going to sit here and talk about the High School Musical plot is far stronger than Uncle Drew's. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, what are you really in the mood for, basically?
Exactly. What's the palate feeling?
We can flip a coin for this first one if you want.
Maybe we should flip for it.
Yeah, why not? It's been a little while.
What do you think, Siri?
Let's say Siri. So I'm always heads. Crosby's always tails.
This is
as
true.
Always. Just keeping things consistent. I'm on the left. He's on the right. It makes sense.
That's how we do it.
Siri, flip a coin. Krosby, you're getting the first point. It's tails.
Oh, huzzah! Thank you, Siri.
So that is 1-0. Krosby takes the first point for Uncle Drew. Both strong plots because they're so simple, so I'm fine with that. Now we're talking about the actual athletes acting, and it's hard for a High School Musical because these are athletes, but they're more athletes, theater athletes, if that makes sense. Like they're theater people playing athletes, whereas yours are athletes playing people playing athletes. It's interesting. So Krosby, why don't you talk about
thing, but a reversed almost.
Right. Talk about Uncle Drew and the actual athletes' performances in Uncle Drew.
So the performances of Uncle Drew, you know, they're not giving Anthony Hopkins a run for his money or anything, but you know, it's a very spirited movie, and it seems like everyone's having a lot of fun doing it. So I have to give props for that. I specifically have to give props to Lisa Leslie because she plays the role of an older woman in it who comes in and plays with them. And apparently for the audition, she came in character.
Oh, that's
would not exit character during audition in costume. So, you know, props for that. I think the thing that's fun about the acting in a movie like this is it's not going to be technically brilliant. It's not going to be, you know, make you think deep questions, but it is full of enthusiasm.
Right.
And what you get when you put this many highly competitive, you know, professional athletes in a setting is just a ton of intense people feeding off of each other. And you can tell, and it's really fun. You know, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving does a nice job doing what he does.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, Shaq does a nice job. He's been in, honestly, a lot of movies at this point.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Nate Robinson, Reggie Miller, almost all of these people have either been commentators or actors or courtside reporters at some point in their lives. So they all have some idea about memorizing lines, doing stuff like that. It's just a really fun film, a lot of fun performances.
Yeah.
How about you? What about young Mr. Efron?
The thing is, as I said, Zac Efron was not an athlete first. I mean, he might have toyed around with it when he was younger, but he wasn't. You know, you're not teaching an athlete to act. You're instead teaching an actor to be an athlete and then to act and sing. But Zac Efron, you know, he does a good job. I can't really say he does the best singing because, again, he didn't sing in the first movie. It was actually Drew Seeley, who was great in Jersey Boys. I saw him on Broadway. Drew Seeley's great. Yeah, he played Bob Gaudio when I went. But the rest of them, though, are singing. I did look it up. So Vanessa Hudgens, Ashley Tisdale, Lucas Graybeal, Corbin Bleu. Corbin Bleu has become a bigger star, too.
Corbin Bleu, yes.
Yeah, they've been in so many Broadway shows and stuff. I did. I saw him in Kiss Me Kate and Holiday Inn.
I didn't see him. Was he good?
Yes, very, very good.
That's cool.
And that's the thing. It's interesting because now with having these trained dancers and singers, these basketball scenes, we'll get there in the next award, the Fast Break Award, but it does add a lot to the actual basketball and the rhythmic nature of basketball. And just seeing basketball players sing is always fun. You know, like it's an interesting premise. It's like for years, it's just like you don't really, even if the acting wasn't good, I think there's still novelty in the fact that they're older basketball players wearing old age makeup and playing basketball. But here it's like, no, they're singing. These are harder songs to sing. You know, they're committing to acting, dancing, singing, and playing basketball. Like they're juggling a lot. And I think Zac Efron, we've seen how big of a star he's become. And I think, you know, if this wasn't as much of a hit as it was, and I don't know if that goes more into the pop culture impact, but the actual acting, his acting, if he wasn't good, they don't make a sequel because they really should. You know, they can't.
No,
the lead man is not good. And he was so good. And he was underestimated that they made him sing in the second movie, and he got even better. So I think he even was underutilized in the first movie, and he only got better with each movie. He had more to show that he didn't even show here. I think that shows a lot to his talent. So I think in terms of the actual acting itself, I think obviously these are actual trained actors, so they have a leg up than yours. True. But if we're looking at the actual novelty of the athletes acting, I think it more goes to Uncle Drew. But what do you think?
I would agree with that. I think if we're actually saying, well, how good was the acting, I'll probably give it to the young folks over at the
East High.
Over at East High, yeah, exactly. Thank you. But if we're doing in terms of the actual the athlete acting factor of it all, I think there's a lot of fun athlete acting in Uncle Drew. But you know, let's not be mistaken. There are times where Corbin Bleu looks like, you know, Sam Rockwell compared to
like act circles around Shaq, you know. And it's also tough. Like, I don't want to bring Space Jam into every argument, but like if Space Jam was in the conversation, I don't think Michael Jordan's performance is as captivating as like the performances in Uncle Drew, because Michael Jordan almost seems like part of the paycheck rather than Uncle Drew, which seems like all of them are having fun kind of doing their thing together. They almost seem like they're having a good time, just, you know, Kyrie especially, like getting to be this old person and dunking on these kids. Like it's fun. They're having a good time, and I think that shows. And I think this movie too, they have a good time and it shows. So it's really hard. So are we going to award the point based on the athletic acting or just the acting itself? That's the question.
You know, that is the question. I feel like we have to do it on the acting itself, because otherwise it almost wouldn't qualify. A High School Musical almost wouldn't qualify.
Because you don't have real athletes.
Professional athletes.
So how are we leaning here? Are we leaning
High
School Musical?
This goes to High School Musical. Much as I adore Uncle Drew, and with a small footnote for Lil Ray Howard, who does a very nice job.
Yes.
And it has wonderful timing.
So we're tied 1-1. This is exciting.
1-1.
So now let's go to a fast break. And this is where I might get lost a little, but I do have some arguments. But Krosby, take it away now with Uncle Drew and the actual basketball scenes themselves.
So the thing about this is just that it's like, if you don't like the NBA or like basketball or like know a little bit about the history of basketball or basketball players, you probably won't like Uncle Drew that much, because it just won't be important to you. You'll be like, okay, well, here's this guy in old age makeup. But the thing that's fun, and I think that was smart about Uncle Drew, is they sort of took these famous basketball individuals and they designed characters that would specialize in whatever it was that athlete was famous for. Shaq's character's always dunking. Kyrie's is always doing fancy footwork and dribbling. And Reggie Miller's always shooting the lights out, et cetera, et cetera. And I will say that I think the street ball parts of Uncle Drew are awesome. They're really fun to watch. They give you Remember the Titans tingles, where you're like, I want to play basketball now. Like, I want to go outside, shoot some hoops, you know? And so for that, I do love Uncle Drew. But tell me, Dylan, what about getting one's head in the game?
I mean, well, you said it. I mean, there's only really one segment that you can judge for this film, because there are other elements, and that's what's tough about High School Musical. But the thing is, the one scene that is devoted to basketball, they really did a cool thing with. Like, I think it's genuinely, I'm not doing this because everyone wanted me to fight this movie, but I think it's very impressive, this choreography with basketballs. I always said, like, the hardest thing to do is to dance with one other element, whether it be like puppets in Avenue Q or anything, like like hat choreography and chorus line. Like, there's an extra element that just makes it difficult. And I think here having a basketball, like I was in a stage production of High School Musical in middle school, and like it was, which is funny because middle school, high school, whatever. And it's tough. Like it took a while to get like the idea of the basketballs like between the legs and around, and like the dancing and everyone in coordination.
Yeah.
And one person drops a basketball, it flies into the pit, or one person drops a basketball if you're filming a movie and it rolls away. You have to retake the whole scene.
Yeah.
Because there's no room for error. So it's essentially like if Shaq misses the dunk, it's a funny moment and you can put it in the movie. Whereas here, it's like if you mess up, you are screwing the whole project. So there's a lot of stakes on the actual basketball itself. That being said, it's not as prominent in the movie, so it's like you can only really judge it on that one number. And then at the end, there's some stuff with the basketball game, but it's more about how is he going to make it to the callback on time? How is she going to do with the math stuff? Like, it's not necessarily the primary focus.
The questions we all ask.
It's not like that movie where it's like you're rooting for, who's going to win the big game. It's not. It's how are they going to get to the big callback? The basketball kind of becomes a second nature. It's not like a second
it's like
prominence. A B plot. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think the musical is the A plot, the basketball is the B plot, the science plot is the C plot. And I think that's where High School Musical gets dinged a little bit. So I don't think this is as much of a fair fight because I think it's Uncle Drew. Yeah, I think it's Uncle Drew here. I think you got to get it, Krosby. So Krosby gets a second point for him. That was a quick one just because, you're not going to compete just one number to a whole movie of great basketball. And for best basketball movie, that's an important factor. So
this is true.
Sets you in the lead.
Make you want to play basketball,
Right. So now the pop culture. So
this is talk about this.
This is where I may have a leg up, but Krosby, I'll let you defend yourself. Let me start because I want to have your rebuttal after my opening. I think High School Musical is obviously a phenomenon. I mean, you have sing-along redistributions, you have sequels, you have the stage show, you have so many different things. The soundtrack was a big deal. I'm reading it's the first Disney Channel original movie to have a theatrical sequel, and I don't think there are many others. The only other one that I think hit theaters was Hannah Montana the movie. Like, there's nothing from Disney Channel that has made it to theaters except for the third High School Musical movie. Like, it started this whole phenomenon. It launched careers of Zac Efron. Ashley Tisdale was already in Sweet Love, Zack and Cody, but you have Vanessa Hudgens, Corbin Bleu. As we said, he's a Broadway name. He's not as much of a movie name, but Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens alone are huge names. I mean, they really are. Vanessa Hudgens is going to be in Tick, Tick, Boom. She was in the movie Spring Breakers. She was in Grease Live. Right. She's done a few big things. Zac Efron, I mean, there's a laundry list. I mean, his movies aren't always the best quality, but I mean, he's very good in them.
He's an A-lister, though. He's box office gold.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that all comes from this movie. And I think just in general, I mean, there's a series now that's airing. We got Olivia Rodrigo because of High School Musical. We have Olivia Rodrigo because of High School Musical, because there was no High School Musical the series if there was no High School Musical the movie. And there's no driver's license song without Olivia Rodrigo becoming a star in High School Musical the series. So that's where I'm going to, this is the most confident point I have.
The jury, have you made up your minds?
but Krosby, tell me, because there is some pop culture impact, especially because Kyrie's a big star.
Okay, this is, I would argue, because I'm not going to sit here and try to be like, oh, Uncle Drew made the same amount of pop culture impact as that, because it didn't. It just didn't. That being said, I think it's more of a chicken and egg thing with Uncle Drew, because Uncle Drew came about from a series of Pepsi commercials.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He did, where he played Uncle Drew and would go to street ballparks and just torch people in prosthetics and makeup as this old dude. And so I think it speaks to a really interesting kind of culture that's different from, as we keep going back to, Space Jam. Where it's the money has changed to the extent where Pepsi can just be like, yeah, let's do an Uncle Drew movie. Why not, Kyrie? Why not? We love it. And I think that's interesting. Also, its budget was $19 million, right?
Yeah.
And it made $46 million at box office.
That's awesome.
Worldwide.
That's a great profit.
So that's not bad. That's
a really good profit. You almost doubled your money. More.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money. That's a decent return on investment. And, but I think aside from that, I there isn't much more of an argument to be made. I mean, it wasn't a movie that was super duper well received. It's got a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's like
Fresh
that's
enough.
like an Oscar for a basketball film. But
True.
But I didn't hear really anyone talking about it. The thing, whenever I meet someone who has seen Uncle Drew, they usually love it. They've usually been like, "Oh yeah, that was really fun. This part was funny. That part was funny. Whatever." But no one's seen it. I don't know how it made $46 million.
And somehow almost everyone's seen High School Musical, which is weird because it was more for a kid audience. But I think, it's branched. It really has.
And it's a big deal for our generation. But like for my older brother's generation, for like his group of theater friends, oh my God, High School Musical was like all they talked about for like a year. You know? And it's funny to think about that being one of the first things that made one of those big pop culture wave type impacts,
Definitely. Yeah. So
gotta give it to HSN.
Wow, we are tied up going into overtime. Well, not overtime, but the fifth round. I didn't think we would get this far. I honestly thought I'd be out at 3, but
no.
High School Musical in 5? Who knows? Or are we going Uncle Drew in 5?
Krosby's hyperextended his knee. But he's charging back.
Yeah, but he's back for game 5. So, let's talk about rewatchability, because I think both of these are short enough, fun enough. Definitely. It's not like a slog like some of the movies we talked about that are masterpieces, but like 3 hours, harder to rewatch, like Gangs of New York, Gandhi, The Godfather, which we've talked about on the show.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about Uncle Drew and the Netflix and Chex Mix scale.
So Uncle Drew is really rewatchable. It's like one of those movies where that was part of the point. Mm-hmm. Them making it was that like, okay, we'll make a movie that people can watch over and over again because we're putting in $19 million, so we might as well. But like, that's also my opinion. Like, I think Uncle Drew is very rewatchable, and I will watch it probably a couple more times, like before this summer's over. Just go be like, I want to watch Uncle Drew. Why not? Yeah. But like, if I'm being super duper honest, like that's not a super widely held opinion. If you're talking about rewatchability as a concept, it doesn't get much more rewatchable than musical theater.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost think that like High School Musical, and I'm almost arguing against myself for a little bit here, is because I think at the time you would watch High School Musical and it would come on right afterward on Disney Channel. You'd watch it again and it would come on again. And then when the sequel came out, they would show High School Musical before the sequel. It happened so much. But I think now at a point in our lives, it's almost like the Frozen thing where how many more times do you have to hear Let It Go before it's like Frozen's just done, and I love Frozen, but I remember the first time I saw Frozen, I was blown away. Now when I rewatch Frozen, I'm like, okay, because I've just heard the song so many times, I'm kind of frozen out. I think this is one of those movies that if you play it too much, it could get a little frozen-y in the terms of like, if I have to hear "We're Breaking Free" again, I'm gonna like, jump off a bridge. But then you have songs that like don't get old, like "Bob to the Top" and like the "Get Your Head in the Game" is fun to watch over and over. So like, there are songs that I think are not as rewatchable because they just get like that annoying song in your ear, like you just can't watch it anymore.
Hear that.
But at the age, I'm trying to put myself in that perspective, it was always on. Like it was just always on. It was just repeated. It's like those Disney animated films that like I grew up with. Like they were just always on TV. They just kept running. And this one, because the channel knew what they were doing, put it back to back to back to back. Sometimes you would wake up at noon, like not wake up at noon, but it would be on at noon and it'd be on at 10 p.m. when you went to bed. So yeah, right. Me too. We don't condone it, kids. Wake up, get a, rise and shine, get your breakfast and coffee. But we were sleeping in. Yeah, so I think again, like there are it's a very rewatchable movie, but it's like at this age, how many more times do I need to watch High School Musical in my life? The second one, forget it. I'll watch it every day. But...
get out of town. But I think that's the thing about, for me, the thing about High School Musical is I just don't know that many instances where I would be in a situation where I'd watch High School Musical again. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I were doing like a summer stock, like something like that, and I were like living in a cast house, then I might watch High School Musical again because people would be like, we should watch High School Musical
with a group. Exactly. You're never going to sit down by yourself.
It's a group kind of film.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like basketball itself. It's like you watch back maybe certain highlights a lot, but you're never going to sit down and just watch Game 7 over again or Game 6, whatever it was. Like, you're really not. But you're going to watch the highlights. And I feel like High School Musical, it's like I'll go and look at a song, but am I going to sit down and watch the whole thing? But then the same could also be said for Uncle Drew because I just haven't rewatched it, so I don't know how well it holds up on rewatch. It probably holds up better than High School Musical does on rewatch, but again, it just depends on if you're in the mood for those songs that, I think if you're sitting down with a crowd, I think both are rewatchable. Both have rewatchable natures to it.
With Uncle Drew, it's like, are you in the mood for those jokes? Are you in the mood for a joke about Chris Webber's timeout thing? Because not everyone gets that. You know what I mean? They're like, it was just be like, oh no, we don't have a timeout, and most people are just like, oh, okay.
Right, but everyone else, basketball fans, are eating it up.
Like, oh, know.
But then does that work toward High School Musical's favor? Because it's not just about the basketball. It's got other elements. It's got the music. It's got comedy. It's got drama even. The moment where they're all breaking up and he's like, this is your dad in high school. You're letting him down. How can you do this to your dad? And then, of course, the famous meme of, what are those boys doing in a tree? When they're sitting in the
internet
tree.
gold.
I
think the thing is, if we're saying like, well, for Krosby, which is the most rewatchable, then it's Uncle Drew. But if I'm just saying, okay, as a guy who likes to think he knows a thing or two about a thing or two, like, which is more rewatchable, High School Musical, gotta be, right?
So am I getting this point?
I think you're getting this point. I was really impressed by that point you made about basketball being like this. I liked it. I thought it was very clever.
Oh my God, I cannot believe
that's painful.
People.
That one hurts.
I did that for the people, y'all. I did that for the people. I did that for you. I won this film off for you.
I didn't want to do that. It didn't feel good, but it needed to be done.
Yeah, I mean, you could have taken it to a coin flip, but I appreciate it, Krosby. I mean, I'm honored to win this film off, rep High School Musical. And talking about it more, because I picked it almost not as a joke, but kind of like as like I'll do it for the audience,
like
but
a
like
challenge.
I would have picked I probably would have picked Hoop Dreams if I'm being honest.
Sure,
but
you're a classy guy.
I mean, it's a beautiful documentary, like gorgeous,
wonderful.
Go watch Hoop Dreams, people. It's so good. But
if you haven't watched Hoop Dreams, go watch Hoop Dreams. It'll make you feel sad.
The feels. But I think talking about it, I'm actually like, okay, I'm happy with my pick.
You talked yourself into it, didn't you?
Yeah, like, because it brought back good memories. And I think that's also another thing is nostalgia. And I think in 10 years, maybe Uncle Drew will have that nostalgia where I'm like, oh, wow, what a great time capsule. Because it is one of the better movies starring basketball people. It really is.
One of the better films starring NBA players.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about Blue Chips when we were putting the list together. And I'm like, that's not the best. And I mean, the Space Jams, depending on if that's your thing.
Space Jams are fun. Space Jam 2 I actually enjoyed. I felt about it the same way that I feel about Uncle Drew, which is that if you don't like basketball, don't watch it because you're not going to like it probably.
Right. Yeah, so that's it. So let's recap the best basketball movie. I chose High School Musical. Krosby chose Uncle Drew. Chekhov's Gun Award for the plot, based on a coin flip, went to Uncle Drew. Athletics Acting Award, the acting in the movie went to High School Musical because they sing, and Uncle Drew don't sing. Fast Break Award, the basketball obviously went to Uncle Drew. The actual pop culture impact obviously went to High School Musical, and it came down to rewatchability, and this was our closest fight yet, but eventually we did settle on High School Musical, and that is our victor for this film off, which is crazy.
Wow.
I mean, I'm happy I got the win, but I did that for you people.
Happy, confused.
I don't think I'm ever going to put out a challenge again. Maybe I will. Who knows? Maybe I will put out a challenge again. Maybe Krosby will have to take the next challenge. Maybe.
Oh, my Lord. I'll try. Whenever the title comes up that seems best suited.
maybe we'll fight like best movie musical and we'll make you do Cats or something.
Like, maybe. Joe,
we already did most.
Do.
We already did most iconic movie musical. Maybe we'll do like best movie musical the past 10 years and make you do Cats. We'll see. And see if you can win it.
We'll see.
Anyway, let's recap.
But I'll try.
What? Now you're not a fan of James Corden licking his paws and diving in dumpsters? Okay. Let us talk about. Let us look at the poll results of what all of you said for your favorite basketball movies. Maya says High School Musical. Thank you, Maya.
Good choice.
Marissa says Air Bud. good choice.
Oh,
you have dogs.
interesting. A title I didn't even really consider.
I didn't think of it either, but it's a good pick.
I didn't think about a Bud franchise.
Yeah, my mom and dad both chimed in. My mom says Teen Wolf, 100%. Okay.
Oh, see, that's a good choice.
Michael J. Fox. Jeff, my dad says Hoosiers. Hoosiers is
Oh,
another good choice.
Hoosiers, that's a good one. Passed 4 times.
Yeah. Okay, we got a few of these ones. Lori says Luck of the Irish, the other Disney Channel original movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That one I wasn't expecting. That's like Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior. Like, that's like coming
It's a
way
deep
out of
cut.
nowhere.
Nina, my sister, said High School Musical. Rachel says Air Bud. Megan says, y'all, the finals have been crazy. Yes, they have. And yes,
True
now
story.
they're over. When this poll was posted, they weren't. But have been crazy. And she says, but High School Musical. So another High School Musical fan.
Wow. The people agree.
That was our last High School Musical. Josephine says The Luck of the Irish. Again, another Luck of the Irish.
Okay.
Nick says Semi-Pro, which we also toyed around a little. Will Ferrell. Jason
Classic.
says Luck of the Irish. Another Luck of the Irish.
Whoa.
I guess we got a lot of lovers of Luck of the Irish
It's
here.
an underappreciated film, obviously.
Another returning poll guesser commenter, Speed Queen, said Celtic Pride.
Celtic Pride.
I have seen that. I don't love that, but it's a fun watch. The Royal Sweet Fairy says Space Jam. Kelsey says Space Jam, obviously. So I guess it's obvious to her.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick.
And then Lauren says Space Jam. So we did have a lot of Space Jam. No Uncle Drew, but I think it's also because it's new, probably.
A lot of Space Jam, a lot of Luck of the Irish, and one Celtic Pride.
Yeah, Celtic Pride.
That
is an interesting movie. I got to rewatch that. That's a very interesting movie. So no Hoop Dreams. So I guess people just haven't seen it because it's a long documentary.
No, all of you guys who are listening now, go watch Hoop Dreams. Come on now. Stop. Pause Luck of the Irish. Put it stop for a second and go watch Hoop Dreams.
We'll watch High School Musical later. If I ever do one of those like subathon, like trying to get subscribers and do like a 24-hour marathon, one of those two of those hours will be a High School Musical watch along. We'll all watch High School Musical together.
That's beautiful.
Nothing for some of the other honorable mentions that we had on our original list that we were choosing from.
True.
Blue Chips, The Way Back, which is the Ben Affleck movie that just came out last year.
One comment was sent to me with Like Mike.
Oh, Like Mike, another good pick. Good pick. Love and Basketball was on the list. He Got Game. White Men Can't Jump. Like, there's a lot of good basketball movies. They're not as popular.
And a couple of very prestigious films, too. Like
yes, exactly. Yeah, like White Man Can't Jump too is a
great movie as well.
Popular one as well.
What a beautiful one.
Exactly. And then of course the Space Jams 1 and 2. The second one having
both
just come out, I haven't seen.
You gotta check it out, Dill.
Yeah, I will. I'll let you know. So Krosby, it's time to tease what we're doing next time, right?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you, I'm a little scared.
A little scared. So we didn't want to dive completely into horror, but with movies like Candyman coming out next month, and there's also the movie Old by M. Night Shyamalan coming out next week. So like, there's a lot of horror and suspense, and we didn't want to we didn't want to limit it to just horror because we're waiting until October to get into the real spooky shit. But like, there's some movies that even if they're not scary, they're suspenseful. They keep us on the edge of our seat. So our next topic is, what is the most suspenseful movie ever? And we want to keep it broad because we think, you could argue Toy Story 3, the incinerator scene, is suspenseful as hell. You can argue a Halloween or a Nightmare on Elm Street, something like that. You can even go Social Network, something that's like suspenseful for the courtroom drama. Right. There are so many different genres to pick from, and I think this is going to be fun to read the poll too to see other people how they interpret it.
I agree.
We're not going to make a short list for this one because there's just like not enough films to just kind of narrow it down to. We're just going to pick our most suspenseful movie and bring it and fight it out. It'll be a lot of fun. Any pre-thoughts for that, Krosby? Excited?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. This is one where I'm thinking about it right now, and this is a very important category for me because I'm not a big horror guy, but I am incredibly big fan of suspense and thrillers.
Yes. So thrill. It could be like, what is the best thriller, but we figured we would make it a little bit more broad. Yeah, like what is the most suspenseful film? What's film is keeps you on the edge of your seat?
The Birds. There are many to choose.
All the Hitchcocks. Oh, I can't wait. Krosby, where can they find you on the internet?
They can find me at Krosby J Roza on my Instagram. How about you, Dill?
Yeah.
Where can they find you?
You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter and or Letterboxd. And you can find me here at the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you're watching on video, we appreciate you. Thank you. If you're listening to us on audio, we appreciate you just as much. Consider giving us a subscribe over on the channel, and on the channel, consider giving us the download on the audio. Cross promote, do whatever you need to do.
Like a bunch
cross
of
pollinate.
bees.
Yeah, B movie. Is it the most suspenseful to you? Let us know next week. I'll put it on a poll next week on my Instagram, and you guys let us know. Is B movie the most suspenseful? We'll find out. Until next time, it's been fun, Krosby. Always a pleasure, my dude.
Always, Dill.
See y'all. Go Wildcats!